Hey everybody, welcome to Core Mentor. I am Daniel, and today we are going to get into a great topic, addiction. How does it start? So really quick before we begin that topic, just want to let you know this channel is all about helping you overcome your challenges and then achieve your goals. Right now we're going through a series on addiction. We're covering all kinds of topics because there are many of us that struggle with that on a day-to-day, and it keeps us from achieving our goals. So we are going to knock out addiction. And if that sounds great to you, this is something you want to get more into, go ahead and subscribe and like, and just get ready for the next video. So today for our topic, we are going to cover addiction and how it forms. And I speak from experience. When in these videos, I share from my own experience. I've struggled with addiction, I've overcome addiction, and I have been addicted to basically along the spectrum. There's these really everyday addictions like coffee, and then you can have more serious addictions that hold you back in life significantly. We got to look at all addictions and wonder, how bad is this for me? But where addiction comes from, in my experience, is it fills a need. And really quickly, what comes to my mind is like the need to escape. And an addiction typically brings with it dopamine or some sense of fulfillment. And that helps us achieve a form of mental escape or mental relief. And so it comes across like it's solving a problem. And that's really what we believe it is doing. And why we remain addicted is because our problem persists. Our problem does not go away, because addictions are not problem solvers. They're just our best attempt to deal with it. And so your addiction will continue, your problem won't go away. And that need remains inside of us and just grows stronger and stronger with every day. Then it gets into like ingrained behaviors. It gets into like changes in how your brain processes neurons, or your brain structure, your pleasure, reward center and whatnot. And not to get too scientific or technical, but it starts as the solution to a need that's not the right solution. Then it turns into this behavior, and then it has these physical and mental impacts and implications. And that's why they're so sticky, because addictions have this just incredibly sticky characteristic to them, where it's like you just can't stop, and you can't stop. And then that's where a lot of the hiding comes from, because there's shame about it. People feel like they're bad because of their addiction, and they have to hide it. They can't let people know about it. They'll appear weak if others know. And it's really a difficult situation to deal with. And so it's really important to understand addiction, understand what it is and what it isn't. And that's one thing that I'll emphasize, because what really kept me stumbling for so long in my life and why I had long-term addictions is because I never really understood what it was. And that was a struggle that I had and a frustration I had for a very long time. Half of my life. So that seems tremendously long to me. I don't know how long you've been dealing with your addiction. But yeah, for a good part of my life, I just didn't really understand it. I thought, oh, I have a moral failure. I'm just a bad human being. There's other things like you have a disease. Great, you have a disease that can't be measured, and it's very elusive and difficult to understand. It helps kind of try to make sense of everything. But to me, those answers like, you're just morally bad and you have a disease, that didn't really click in my brain. I was like, I don't know, that doesn't really match up with my experience. And so getting into more of the trauma model and understanding the science behind addiction, that has helped me tremendously. That has really opened my understanding to where it comes from. And why I wanted to make a video about where it comes from is because in my own journey of healing from addiction, there's so much learning. Just so much gets crammed into your brain about the whole process and everyone's experiences. And it is a little different topic for every different addiction. And it's a ton of information. And it's difficult to put into practice and to understand how to put it into practice. But whenever I brought it back to I have a need to be filled or a problem to be solved, then I began to understand the part of me that wanted the addiction, the part of me that gets excited for the addiction. And that's hard to admit, especially if you have a really bad destructive addiction that you want it. That's your solution. That's your answer. And it makes no sense. That's the hardest part, trying to communicate that to people. It doesn't make any sense. And why it is your answer, why it solves your problem, I think the story is a little different. But what I've found with addiction and just dealing with any kind of mental hang up or any mental issue is people we have like systems and processes about ourselves. And like a computer or a computer program, we can run very smoothly when everything goes well. But if you put something in to the system or process, especially early on, like a virus that messes with everything, then we can get really weird and glitchy. I've also worked on cars quite a bit. It's a little similar. On a car, if you have a sensor that goes out, you could think your engine's about to explode. And it's just one little sensor that's sending the wrong information. And for me, that understanding in my belief system, tying it to my belief system, that helped me understand my own thinking, my own dysfunctional thinking in solving my needs through addiction. And so, you have a problem, you have a need, you need to fill. It's important to realize, especially if you're an adult, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, that you likely are thinking of, this addiction does solve this problem. I'm stressed in social environments, so if I have a drink or a little drugs, I loosen up. I be me. And that's not really the core problem and their core need. And it's important to dig deeper and not just take surface answers, because I had one like, life's hard. I didn't have the perfect childhood growing up. And so I'm sad and depressed. And that's like kind of around the issue, but it didn't really get deep into the issue. So that problem normally is relational. And I think, like, for me, a lot of mine came from like early on childhood, like bad beliefs, like toxic beliefs that I as a child took on. I don't think my parents were trying to teach me that. They tried the best they could, but I took on some just really poor beliefs that I really haven't gotten into until lately. And those merged and grew as I was older. And I even suspect that I may have developed some like when I was 2 or 3, like really early on, because it's some of my beliefs that I could write down on paper. This is what I believe. And you're like, that's so like crazy. Why would you believe that about yourself? Like I'm not worth people's time and energy. And if someone gives that to me, that's extremely valuable, right? We should have a mutual relationship. No, I have a sub relationship. It's like, where in the world did I learn that I have a sub relationship? And so just trying to figure all of that out. And I had a few beliefs where I was like, I really don't know where this came from. I don't have some event in my memory or a behavior. I could like kind of make stuff up and connect the dots, but it was really difficult to fully understand that. But that's kind of where you have to go when you have an addiction, and there's this we'll call it if you want to call it a behavior that's hard to stop. You have a behavior that's really hard to stop and control. Then I would really recommend asking yourself, what problem does this fix for me? What is it doing for me? And then backtrack it to a point where you really fully understand what it's doing for you. And you'll likely see the path of an addiction, how the addiction formed, and where it came from and why you accepted it. And the powerful thing about that, let me tell you, this should get you a little excited, because when you bypass all the second layer reasons, or the outer layer reasons, basically not the real reason why you have an addiction, but what society tells you, what people tell you, what you tell yourself. And when you get to the core, that is when mentally you begin to gain power to change yourself. And that's what I experienced when I understood why I did what I did. why I had these impulsive behaviors. When I truly understood it, what it was solving for me and what I was expecting from it, then I began to challenge myself. And I don't think I've ever been able to really successfully challenge myself in my addictions. Like, you'd be like, oh, why are you doing this? This is not right. You have a problem. You can't stop. Like those kind of challenges really didn't get through to me. But when it was truthful, that's a powerful thing to me. When it was truthful, when it felt truthful, when I had no doubt about why I was doing what I was doing, then it started to break through. And then I was able to directly see the need that I was trying to fill, see how pointless and fruitless my journey or my pursuit of the addiction was meeting that need. And I began to think and create actual, true, authentic ways to meet that need. And it took work and effort, and it still takes work and effort. Not as much work and effort as when I first started. But as I began to fill those needs through authentic means, then the addiction, I kid you not, it started to lose its power. It started to lose its grip on me because my own mind stopped believing that that was the answer to my problem. And so that's why it's so important, so important, like to really understand how addictions form and understand it in a way that helps you. You're going to hear so much. You're going to hear from me. You're going to hear from all these people on YouTube. You're going to hear from doctors. You're going to hear from culture. You're going to hear from religion. You're going to hear from your family. You're going to hear from your friends. If you're struggling with addiction, why you're doing that. But there's only one truth. And not all of these sources are giving you the truth. And when you get into that, then you gain power. And if you listen and you follow half-truths, you're going to be stuck in your addiction like I was. You're not going to be able to fight your way out. And one really awesome thing that I'm experiencing while I get in front of the camera is you'll get to a place to where it's not much effort at all in a relatively short period of time to resist your addiction, to find a way around, because now you have what you need to take action. And maybe you already have it. I don't know. It took me forever, I feel like, to get to this point, to understand these conclusions. And another thing I'll tell you is when I was fact-finding throughout the years, I think I kind of knew, but I would go to people that were important in my life, and I would bring my problems to them. And I would tell them, I think this is my problem. I think this is my issue. And some people would turn the finger back on me because they didn't like what was causing my addiction for whatever reason. So that's something you have to be careful about. When you start getting into these truths, and when you start getting into the reasons why you do these crazy addictive behaviors, nobody's going to want to take any responsibility for that. If someone misled you at some point, someone you care deeply about and who's going to be in your life for forever, I think of family often in these kind of scenarios. They are not going to be very open to you saying, oh, I think you're the reason why, or the way that you treated me here led me down the path of having this insecurity. And this insecurity turned into this horrible addiction. That's what, gone, done. They're not going to want to talk to you anymore at all. Nobody wants to take responsibility for your addiction. They want to push it back on you, which kind of makes sense. And what I will say is we the addicted have the responsibility to put the right solutions into practice to deal with our addiction. If we don't have the tools, if we don't have a true way to deal with our addiction, okay, great. We're going to be stuck. And that is a kind of a helpless place to be in. But when you get the tools, when you get the knowledge and the power, then it kind of is on you. And that's something that I took on myself is I have a dysfunction. I can't control my behavior. It's not going well. It's not going to be good in my life if this stays. I have to find the truth. That's what I would tell myself over and over. I have to find the truth of this so that one day I wake up and it doesn't bother me anymore. It doesn't have power over me anymore. And so getting into where my addiction came from, that helped tremendously. And I'll do another video, I think, later on because I try to make these 10 to 15 minutes and we're almost at time. For me, a lot of it gets into complex trauma and a little bit of childhood trauma, or we'll just say childhood trauma. And I'm trying to be really careful I watched a Gabor Mate video, and he talks about how when you're getting into like childhood traumas and stuff, having compassion on your parents, having compassion on the people who you think contributed to that, because it is a really touchy subject, and you don't want to necessarily, maybe sometimes you do, but you don't necessarily want to burn bridges. And dealing with addiction or childhood traumas and whatnot, that usually gets you into that kind of position with the person. And so I will walk the path carefully. we'll put it that way. Like, we have to get to the truth. We have to get to the answer because the freedom's so great. But at the same time, you have to do it compassionately towards yourself and compassionately towards the people who did that to you, because, you don't want to necessarily burn bridges. You don't want to lose relationships over it. And in the end, I believe, to a degree, because you do need social support. Social support is very important for overcoming addiction. In the end, you probably want to maintain those relationships, or at least keep them in a good light where you can go and say, hey, how's it going? Or maybe show up for Christmas or whatever. You want to keep it positive and not completely throw the person under the bus, even though all the pain and grief and suffering that you've been through. Because I think they, probably were trying the best that they were, just like us in our addictions. We tried the best that we could. We didn't know how any better, unfortunately. And so we did a lot of stupid stuff. And you got to admit that. You got to admit how dumb you were in your addiction. And you would have done better if you could. And so that's what this video is all about, is that now we can do better. So that's, to a degree, a quick dive into how addictions form, the problem, the need, and mentally, I would say kind of like an immature solution. Like, if I go do this thing, then it's going to solve my need for connection. If I go, drinking with people, then I'll feel connected and loved. And it's like, alcohol is not exactly connecting you with all these people. There's some social aspects to it, but it's really something you need to be able to do sober. And then, if I drink this coffee, I'll be productive and successful, because I can't be productive and successful without coffee. Well, what about the first 20 years of your life where you're perfectly fine without caffeine? You have to start challenging these beliefs. And then another belief, because I like to name several different kinds of addictions, is the workaholic. If I go and I achieve, I will be acceptable. I will be valuable. If I go and make all this money and prove myself through my work, then people will finally love and accept me. And I will be a valuable person in my family or in society or whatever. No, you already are a valuable person. We all carry value, and you can go out and be productive, and that's great. But, that's where workaholism comes from. People can't turn off the clock at work because it's their value. And they completely lose their value if they don't do well in their job, and they don't perform well, and they don't, maintain a certain lifestyle. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope it's really began getting you to think about your addiction, and that it's not some unusual or mysterious problem, but there's a real reason to it, and you have a belief that supports it, and there's an understandable reason why you came to that belief, whether it was through a child or young thought process that brought you there, or just your understanding at the time. And then quite possibly things are addictive just out of their nature. But a stat I'll throw out there is that Gabor Mate, this is another one I got from him. I read a lot of his stuff. He said, no, I'm sorry. It's Tim Fletcher. That's another person I listened to. Said that they did studies, and 90% of addicts had childhood trauma or complex trauma issues. And so it's like, there's 10%, we don't know, but the majority does have an underlying issue that led to it. And so I think in addiction, there's an underlying problem or issue to address. And just maybe you got addicted because it's addictive, but most likely not. The chances are lower. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. I hope it's helped. I try to speak from experience and uncover truths and help you the way that I've been helped, because life just keeps getting better and better and better. And I'm loving what I'm experiencing. Go take care of yourself. Do what you need to do and hang in there. If you're struggling and if you feel like you're dealing with a problem that there's no solution for, just hang in there. It took me a while, but I broke through and I got to this other side that's a lot better. So I just want to encourage you with that. No matter where you are at mentally, just keep moving forward. There is a better future. Well, thanks, guys. I'll talk to you all in the next one. Bye-bye.